Out. I am excited to be joined by Tracy Byrnes. She's a former Fox Business anchor. We worked together many moons ago, but she's also an amazing financial authority. She has been a writer in this space. She's been a news commentator, an anchor, and a reporter, and now she is helping clients take hold of their financial security and create freedom for them, particularly women, in her new role as a financial advisor for UBS. And I'm so thrilled to be reconnected with her and have a nice conversation about the markets and finances and what we should all be thinking about over the coming months. So good to be connected, Tracy.
It's awesome. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So let's talk about these markets. The last time we talked, the markets were on a tear, and since then they have pulled back. And so what we're noticing is a lot more of this roller coaster ride. A lot of us need more Dramamine than others. Some of us are okay because we have a longer term outlook, but I think everybody feels a sense of anxiety and worry, obviously. How are you looking at the markets, and what are you advising your clients to do?
It's funny, we were just talking today too about the election too, because that's the big elephant in the room. I don't even know if it's an elephant anymore. It's there, right? It's happening. And so it could go either way. So now we're starting to talk and think through some estate planning, because if the estate tax changes, should you be gifting more money now? Should you be making more charitable contributions now if all this goes away? So I think what we've been seeing with the market in particular is that there's a small group of stocks, tech in particular, your space for sure, that is carrying this whole thing, right? So all the, your retail, your airlines, God bless the cruise companies, right? I mean, they've been through a lot of things over the years, but there's a small group of stocks that are still, carrying us, every day. And it is very, very volatile up and down, but it seems to be marching higher.
Yeah.
That said, though, if you survive that first violent dip, I think we were in bear market territory in like 16 days, which is a record in the very beginning, right? When we first went down with COVID. If you couldn't sleep during that, I would hope that between then and now, you have taken some time to really rejigger that. Want that. You don't want that.
So how do we avoid that? I imagine that depending upon what age and stage of life you're in, you might, if I'm close to retirement, my outlook and my actions are different versus if I'm in my 20s or in my 30s. Like, how are you advising clients based on where they're at?
Right. So I love to think about life in buckets. So my short term, my, retirement piece, and then we call it legacy, but what do you want to leave for your kids and your charitable inclinations and things like that? So your short-term piece is like your 3 years, 3 to 5 max. What's happening? Do you have enough money to cover your expenses? Look, this black swan came out of nowhere, and let's not be fooled. There will be another one. Something will happen. It seems like every 10 years we get smacked in the head with something. So were you able to cover your expenses if indeed you were furloughed or something like that? And also to look to what's happening in your world. Is someone getting married? Is someone going to college? That short-term money should be in some sort of cash or cash equivalent, right? Something that's really liquid, CDs, ultra short-term bond funds, things that you can get access on quickly. And if the market does go, that money's not affected at all. So you know that those things are covered. Your longer-term retirement piece, you can take a little bit more risk with it, presuming you have Dramamine by your bedside and you're willing to ride out the ebbs and flows. We know the market goes up over the long haul, but it does not do it in a straight line, right? And of course, your legacy piece is, how do you want to leave the earth better than when you got here? And it doesn't have to be after you're gone. You can start doing that now. And I think people sometimes push that off thinking it's going to happen when they're dead. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. You should be able to see the fruits of your labor today.
But is this the right time to be doing that kind of stuff, Tracy? I think all of us notice the financial volatility. We're concerned about it. Maybe we're taking different steps, and we can talk about what those steps are to kind of baby step our way into things. Is this the right time to be making those bigger picture choices, given that we don't know even what the short term is going to look like?
Well, I think we know at the end of the day, we're going to survive it, right? We know at the end of the day, we're not going anywhere. We
Oh,
know, right? Right. I'm like
Kevin
Bacon in Animal House. All is well. We're gonna get through it. It's gonna be rocky. That's why, like, that short-term money should be available to you if you need it. I think it's always good to think long-term and big. I don't think women think big enough. You and I, we talked before, and I've said this before, that like I always use the Tom Brady analogy that he envisions throwing touchdown passes. I don't think we do enough of that. Like, what's your touchdown pass? You have to have a dream, even in this volatility, because it will end. And when it does, when you come out on the other side, you want to come out better than when you started.
Okay, so how do we start thinking big, particularly as women? It is something that we probably have in our on our vision boards and in our series of how we on our 40-year life plans, or in our 50-year, 60-year life plans. How do we turn that into action, though? Because we all want financial security, but life happens, we can give that up. How do we dream bigger and then support that with our actions?
So first and foremost, right, you got to fund your retirement plans. You have to pay yourself first, because there will always be something and some reason that you need all that money today. Mm-hmm. And I could give you a list of things that my house needs, but I can't do it because I have to pay myself first, right? Otherwise, I will be in a refrigerator box in retirement by myself. I have 3 beautiful children. No one's taking care of me. Let's be clear. So you have to think about yourself. And that's all it takes. And the best part is so many, if you're, a W-2 employee, that comes right out and you don't miss it. Like, that's the kind of thing that has to happen. If you have charitable inclinations, now's a great year to start giving to charity. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. It makes you feel good. And then you start to see your little buckets come to fruition. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It's just a little at a time. And it's the consistency and the patience that wins at the end of the day.
What are some of the asset classes that women should be looking more at that they don't, because maybe they're more risk averse? We all have savings accounts, and maybe we have 401ks because these are more structured programs and easily accessible. But what should we be considering as women to diversify ourselves?
It's so interesting you say that, because the statistics show that so many women are averse to this equity market. They're afraid of it. And I don't know why, because you and I both know, if you start to look around your house at the products you use on a daily basis, right? The amount of bleach we have all used during COVID, why I don't own that company is insane, right?
Clorox, yeah.
Right. The amount of toothpaste and toilet paper we were all fighting for this whole time. We are always going to need that stuff. Not to mention, so many of these big, strong, large cap companies pay a dividend. So you're getting paid on top of it. And so it's like a little interest payment for you every month. I think women in particular have to be pushed a little bit sometimes to get into the equity market. You don't need everything safe and sound in a CD, because you won't outpace inflation. You just won't, sadly. So we need to take a little more risk. The other asset classes will always be there, real estate, things like that. But I think there's a grayness around those. It's much easier to understand the equity market. And part of the problem is women, they shy away from the financial markets because they think it's like this inside baseball lingo that they don't understand. And so to point somebody to a REIT or to commodities, it just makes matters worse. These are companies, they're household names. And like we just said, you're going to need them and use them forever.
Yeah, it's a good place to start because you understand the brands, you understand your own buying behavior, so you can understand the company as a result. And that's a good place to dip your toe in.
Right, for sure.
Let's also talk about financial rules. It's interesting because, and someone said, no wine shirt today, Tracy. So
my reputation precedes me, I suppose. It is almost 4:00 out here on the East Coast.
It's almost out. True. Today's Saturday. I have no idea what day. Okay, might as well be Saturday. So sure,
that's funny.
Why not? Right. One of the things that I've experienced in my own life is it's ironic because I have a finance degree. I worked on Wall Street, then I transitioned to journalism and worked with you at Fox. And I was very much in charge of my finances up until the point I got married. And maybe I had some involvement and role in the earlier years, but as children started coming into play, life started to get busier. I lost insight into what was happening in our finances. And as long as everything was okay, I felt like, it's okay. But that puts us at significant risk. I know that you know this, and that's exactly what you advise your clients not to do. To give us some of insight in terms of regaining our power over our finances, no matter what relationship status we have.
Right. And I think everyone, first of all, does not need to feel bad about this. And this is another problem with women. We feel bad about everything. I feel guilty about everything all the time. Don't feel bad about the fact that you don't know right now, because we can change it instantly. And then you just move forward.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, your situation is so normal across the board. Life happens. You get really busy. You're taking care of the kids, and you can't help but turn to your partner and be like, I'm not sure what you're doing here, but do something. And you hand off the long-term investment stuff, just because it's the one thing you can hand off and not, again, feel guilty about, right? You want to make sure the kids are taken care of, and you have your job to worry about. So the problem is we hand it off, but we never take it back. Mm-hmm. And I always equate it to a female entrepreneur. If she had a business and she had a staff of people, she would delegate stuff out, and then she'd have like a meeting once a week and say, okay, what'd you learn? We need to start doing that. Mm-hmm. I've said that people should go on a money date. And again, it doesn't have to be like a long, drawn out thing. I think it should be like over one glass of wine and an appetizer, and then move on and pick one thing. And this could be with your, you ruin the night. There'll be no fun at the end if you talk money the whole time. This could be with your spouse, your partner, your friend, your parent. Quite frankly, it could be with yourself. You can block time in your own calendar to say, 1 hour a week, I'm going to look at one thing. Mm-hmm. And just ask one question. And I think, you and I have been on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. They speak in tongues. They use abbreviations. And it's almost like they do it on purpose to make you feel like you don't know what you're talking about. And I kind of like sometimes feel like it's just not necessary. Yeah. So it's intimidating. And I think women think they need to know, like, where did the Dow close today? And why is the NASDAQ higher because of X, Y, and Z? And I don't think that has anything to do with it. Your personal finances are more about, do you know where your life insurance policy is? Do you know the account names and passwords to all your investments? Do you know all this stuff? Do you have money set aside for college? Those are the questions that you need to have answered. Who cares what, the NASDAQ closed at today?
Yeah, and you suggest not doing that all at once, because if you're doing estate planning or, you're, getting certain documents together, you need to know all that stuff, but that can also be overload. So Completely. That's something that we can do today, right? It's just ask what's a good place to start?
Life insurance. Do we have any? Mm-hmm. Do we have an investment account? Where does it stand? Mm-hmm. Pick one thing, because then I really do think that more women need to show up. And I don't mean to point the finger at women, but it generally is women who don't show up when the partner goes to meet with the financial advisor. She doesn't want anything to do with it. And that has to change too. I insist both people are sitting in front of me. She has to come. I don't care if she doesn't listen. I don't care if she's looking at her phone the whole time. She has to be in the room, because by osmosis, she will learn something. And then eventually she'll start asking questions.
And do you see, what are you noticing with the millennials that you work with? Are they more into this? I mean, generationally, I imagine older people are taking more of the traditional roles, but what are you seeing across the spectrum of decades?
So we did this amazing research, and 56% of millennials abdicate financial responsibilities to their partner or spouse. Oh. And I think, while it's just completely disheartening to me, I think it has a lot to do with they are probably in their childbearing years right now. Mm-hmm. So they're home with the little ones. They were probably homeschooling like yourself during COVID. God bless your soul. I don't know how you guys did all that. But so completely overwhelmed with everything else, they abdicate. They just need to come back to the table at some point, sooner rather than later. Just start asking questions.
Mm-hmm. What are some tips? So the other thing that you help advise, and I know you just completed a certification in divorce management. Tell us a little bit about this and what you've learned about what women need to do whether you're happily married, you're not married, are you looking to get remarried? Like, what do we need to know about based on what you've learned through your divorce work?
So thank you. It's a certified divorce financial analyst designation now. And I think as a person who is divorced, I've been on my own for 15 years. I've heard so many stories of women who say, I can't leave him because I don't know how to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. And it like makes my skin crawl. I think you should opt to live on the street and happy than in a bad marriage. So I have this passion for this because I don't think anyone should be unhappy, and you shouldn't stay because of money. Interestingly, though, so many women, because life happens, get to a point where now they've had it. And they're so far gone. I have a very dear friend going through it right now, and he's been signing their tax returns for the last 5 years. She has no idea. So we're starting from scratch. That's not what you want. You want to know where things are. That's why I ask these questions. What are the account names and passwords? That is like first and foremost, I think, across the board, especially because so many, if it is a man who is in charge of it, they come up with these funky names and passwords that inevitably have something to do with one of the New York Yankees or, there's some football player that I've never heard of in my whole life. Ask these questions. You don't want to come to the table, and no one wants your marriage to end, but sadly the statistics bear it out.
The spouse passes away. I mean, you need to know these things no matter what.
8 in 10 women will be alone in retirement, whether it's divorce, death, or by choice. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of women on their own. And over 60% of them won't know where their next dollar is coming from. That's horrible. So you don't want that.
You need to ask questions. You need to know where the passwords are, what the accounts are. Anything else?
I think that you need to show that you, first of all, you are completely smart enough to know this. And do not feel bad asking a question. Ever, 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 ever. Just ask. Where is it? What does it mean? What the heck is a 529? And where did that crazy number come from? Right?
Ask. Where is it? Yeah.
Where is it? Yeah. Do we have one?
Yeah.
Sign the tax return. You know what? The tax return, by the way, should not intimidate anyone either. It is one big mathematical equation. I personally think everyone should sit down and do their own tax return at least once in their lifetime. TurboTax is fantastic. Yeah. Walk through it so you understand where you are. You just need to understand. You don't need to, it's like reinventing the wheel. You don't need to do it. You just need to know how to use it.
Yeah, and you need to know where to find it when you need it. And eventually we will need it.
Absolutely. And that's why the account names and passwords, that's like, if you got that, you're like halfway there.
And tax
returns. Access. And tax returns.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Call your accountants right now and go get back tax returns. So just look at them if you haven't, because it's so important. It's a complete snapshot of your life. And it'll give you a really good sense of where you are, what money's coming in, what money's going out. So many people just have no idea.
One of the things that people can do in working with you, a financial advisor, is having these discussions, getting prompted to ask questions of their spouses and of one another, and even of ourselves. What makes a good relationship with a financial advisor and a client from your perspective?
So I think we have to be able to have a glass of wine together. It's clearly no secret, people coming on Instagram asking me about wine. So I'm a wine lover, but I think we need to be able to be comfortable with each other. It's just, we all of us financial advisors all took the same tests. We all passed the same things. We all follow the tickers. We all know the same thing. Yeah. It's a matter of, right? It's a matter of who do you feel really comfortable with? Because in order to have a good relationship, you got to tell me everything. You got to tell me what you have. You got to tell me what you're going to be getting. Is there an inheritance? Who do you really want to leave money to? What organizations do you really care about? It could be like, the pit bulls of Connecticut. Who cares? But you have to be honest and willing to say it and not feel judged and not feel like you are any less inferior than anybody else. You need to go out and interview people like myself, because you're hiring them. You're hiring us. And you, just like you would go do due diligence on your nanny, you would never let a nanny in your house without all the research in the world. Same for people like me.
That's so interesting, because I think that so many of us choose a financial advisor based on track records. We get the names from our friends. We think that, since they work for friend ABC, they must be good for me. But it sounds like we need to consider them in the same way we consider people that we bring into our house and our closest associates. That the relationship should be that intimate in a lot of ways.
And they should understand how you learn. I think this is really important. Like, with all due respect to the old white guys who have been in the business for years and they've done a beautiful job, many of them are very statistical. They want to show you numbers, show you charts. This is what your money's done. And a lot of people don't learn that way. Yeah. I'm a storyteller. I want to hear a story about something. I want you to talk to me. So, or other people are visual. Other people are very mathematical, but your advisor needs to understand you too, because the relationship will fail if I keep coming to the table with all these charts and you just don't like charts. It's not going to work, right? So I think in all things we do, we have to understand how we learn best and make sure that's articulated.
Yeah. Anything else, Tracy, that we need to think about in terms of empowering ourselves as women, as just humans, and creating financial prosperity, not just security, as we navigate? What's on your timeline, your horizons for your outlook over the next 6 to 12 months, if anything?
It will be interesting, to say the least, right? I mean, as we started off saying, we are starting to think about, well, if the Oval Office changes, a bunch of things could change. Your estate deduction could decrease. We might have a capital gains issue with a step up in basis issue. Like, so should you be taking gains now? Charitable giving could change. Lots of things could change. So we're like in this weird holding pattern, but all the more you need to talk to your advisor just to prepare for this. So we're starting now to say, if X, Y, and Z happens, we're going to do this. If it doesn't, we're going to do this. But at least we have a plan. So you could say go at the end, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Like, it's one thing to follow both sides on Twitter, and it's an interesting verbal.
Don't do it, no. Don't do it.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I say about financial news in general. It's bad enough I have to watch it. I don't think anybody else should watch it. I think it's the headlines are blown out of proportion. They're frightening. It's terrible. It's terrible. Watch the Food Network.
Yeah. Okay, I will do that. That sounds great to me. But if I ask those questions, if I were working with you, Tracy, and before we go, I want to have you share your contact information in case anyone wants to reach out to you. How often should you and I be talking?
As often as you're uncomfortable. Yeah. At a minimum, once a quarter. At a minimum, once a quarter. But as often as you are uncomfortable, or something comes across your desk, every now and then, right? Someone says, my friend said I should invest in this hot new stock. Call me. Let's talk about it. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Yeah. You have a new opportunity for something at work. So-and-so, buying a house. Because in theory, could help you with all of it. Mortgage rates are insane these days. I'm happy to help you refinance. So call me. Just call me. That's, I don't think that enough people get on the phone. Just pick up the phone.
And if somebody's in need of cash right now, Tracy, one of the things I'd read maybe in an USA Today article was people are dipping into their kids' college funds in order to pay bills and stuff. What can you advise people out there to consider if they're in need of cash? Because a lot of people are having a hard time right now, as you know.
I know. And all the federal funding is going to come to an end, and this whole extra $600 that people are getting on unemployment will end. And then what? You feel so stuck. One of the things that we're doing is offering credit lines to people. So you can often open one with no cost. It's an emergency. That way you don't have to sell. You don't have to dip into anything. And if the interest rate is I think we're at 1.5%, it's practically free money, strictly for emergency purposes. Although people are using them to pay off mortgages and things like that. You have to take advantage of these low rates. I get, though, sometimes desperation comes and you're just like, we need to pay the bills. Where are we going to get it?
Yeah.
But try not to have that trigger finger where you hit sell. Try to really think it through and be logical, because I think if you go to sleep and you wake up the next morning, sometimes you just see things clearer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're out of that panic and that fear mode. And that's something
right.
that you could help advise your clients with. If they were in need of cash, you would tell them, right? For sure.
That we would look at that for sure at first. But I think one of the beauties of having a third party is it takes the emotion out of it. I'm your neutral mediator here, almost like in a divorce, right? I just want everyone to be happy.
Yeah.
So it's good to have a sounding board sometimes when you're sitting at home with your spouse and you're like, holy crap, how are we going to pay the mortgage? Sometimes it's very hard to see things clearer and to see other opportunities. That's why it's oftentimes really good to have a third person to talk to.
All right. So if people want to work with you, Tracy, as you wrap up here, where can they find you?
You're so great. My email is Tracy, Tracy.Byrnes, BYRNES@UBS.com. Anytime.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Tracy, so good to talk to you, be connected again. I wish you the best of luck. Keep doing great things as you always do. And I hope everyone will reach out to Tracy, and
Me
let's
too.
do this again soon.
I'd love it. Thank you, Shibani.
All right. Thanks, Trace.